everybody. Welcome to Talk, Teach, Play. My name is Aaron Locks. I'm the CEO and founder of the National Academy of Athletics. And today we're going to be discussing a pretty interesting topic. At least it's fun to me. And you know we're about everything youth sports. So we're going to discuss with my good friend Scott Madsen about youth sports organizations. And are they now designed more for servicing the adults rather than the kids? But before we get too deep into the topic, hey, Scott, man, welcome. And thanks for coming on and hanging out with us.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You know, what people don't realize is I think I met you when I was 7 years old hanging out in Tam Valley. So we've been on this youth sports journey for a while. Is coming up as we go forward, right?
Good old days back in the neighborhood, you bet.
Right. And you know what? I tell everybody, we could not have grown up in a better place, man. We would just go down the street and play ball, whatever it was. We just played every day. And it's too bad our kids don't get that experience now, right?
That was us all day, every day. It's a different sport every day, too. Couldn't have been better.
Sometimes 3 or 4 sports a day. Well,
Yep.
One thing I want to kind of let everybody know, you know, Scott has coached over 20 years, everything from CYO basketball to Little League and baseball and high school, football and basketball and baseball, was an athletic director at a high school. And now it's interesting, which I really am excited because of your wide range, also being the founder and president of Next Level College Athletics and Admissions. And I think it's really interesting to me that you've been counseling kids, over 15, 16 years now, right?
Yeah, it's been about 16 years that we've been doing this, working with students and student athletes, getting them through the college search and admissions, academics, and the recruiting processes. So yeah, it's been a blast. We've had a good time kind of helping kids realize their dream.
Very cool. So how in the world did you get it? I mean, I know we got sports and we got topic, but how did you get into that, man? I mean, how did did it land in your lap, or you kind of said, yeah, I'm going to do this, or how does that happen?
Well, my partner, Jeff Dale, who is a good friend of mine that I grew up with as well, was a high school, or he was a community college athletic counselor down in Los Angeles. And he was noticing that the kids that he was working with, they weren't getting a lot of academic or athletic information based coming out of the community college. And then with my job as a coach and athletic director, I was noticing that the kids weren't getting a lot of academic and athletic the success either coming out of there. Right. And he said the private counselor business is really kind of blowing up. So he said, why don't we try this together and go into it privately and just try to serve student athletes working into this realm. So that's when it began back then. And since then, he's moved to Hawaii, and I've kind of taken it over myself. So it's been all me for about the last 10 years.
Yeah, we may have to go visit him soon, though, just when we get a chance, right?
Yeah, not a bad place to retire to, that's for sure.
So we both played, you know, Mill Valley Little League, right? We played CYO, Mount Carmel. We played a lot of sports, obviously. You know, I've got 2 kids now. My son is 19. He's supposed to be playing college, but because of the scenario, he's taken a Rungspringer year, which is a whole other issue, working at Costco doing his thing. But my daughter's missing playing, and you got kids, let's see, 21 and 15-year-old boys, right? And then
Yep.
a 12-year-old daughter, right? So
Yep.
You've been through this not just as an academic counselor, right? Or you know, in terms of what's going on, but I mean, you've got tons of experience. So what is your overall, when I asked that question, we talked about this earlier, but so everybody kind of gets an idea. What's your thought about, just in terms of my premise, that it seems as though there's kind of a shift in terms of how the youth sports organizations have kind of pivoted. It used to be, right, they would give you a bag of balls and Coach Sislis or whoever it was took us out to the field and kind of taught us some sports and we played. And it seems like it's changed quite a bit, right? Did I lose you on the sound? Are you back there? Can't hear me. All right, let's stop.
Okay, are you there? All right, it's back.
All right. So let me re-ask the question.
Retake.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll re-ask the question. So Scott, you and I played in Mill Valley Little League together, right? I mean, we've been playing all different kind of sports and basketball. And back then, it felt like they just, you know, they gave a coach a bag of balls and some, you know, equipment and threw it out there in the green army bag or whatever it was, and they went out to the field and they played ball. And yet, it seems like it's changed so much. A couple statistics that might kind of get right. So interesting, from Fact Monster, 45 million kids between the ages of 4 and 13 are playing sports. So right now, so that's a lot of kids, right? A lot more. and that's organized on a team. 72% of kids between the age of 4 and 13 will try to play on a team sport, whether their parents said they had to or whatever the case may be. And 55.5%, so over 50%, will try at least once to play on a team sport in high school or an individual sport in high school. So sports is obviously a big deal. But when we were coming up and we were playing, it was really, for lack of better words, they rolled the ball out and kind of taught you some fundamentals and played for fun. But it seems now things have shifted. What are you seeing out there? I'm getting a lot of questions about it. What are you seeing out there in the youth sports world?
Well, back in the day when we were playing, it was a situation where there wasn't as many kids. It was very condensed. It was your friends. You all got together. There was a small amount. You went out and played, and it was all good. There's been a huge resurgence now of playing all types of sports at all levels, whether it's recreation or little league or CYO or travel teams or whatever. And even then, back in the day, there was no travel teams. It wasn't anything more than it was this amount of basketball, then you had little league, and then you had Pop Warner football and maybe some soccer on the side, and that was it. So it's blown up. It's just become so much bigger and so many more opportunities for kids to play. And when you get into that, you got a whole bigger infrastructure that you have to develop with too, that you have to deal with. And that is one of the biggest things is you got to find coaches and you got to find opportunities for all these people. And when you do that, you're going to get some good coaches. You're going to get some coaches that are just out there to have fun and make it happen, and some coaches that get a little too competitive. So there's a wide range of coaches that get into this now as well, because there's so many more opportunities for kids to play.
Now I get it. So it just feels like, but I remember, I mean, we practiced, we would go out there and they would do drills after drills. It just seems now it's almost like, in my mindset, it's like they're focusing on where they're going rather than enjoying where they're at, right? I got to imagine what you've been working with, and you've probably seen it with your kids, where can't we just play and have fun and just enjoy playing, right? So what's the thought on that? What do you got about that?
I've noticed that the emphasis on winning and being successful has just seemed to increase from the time where I was coaching myself. I started coaching right out of high school. And
Right.
so from the time when I've been coaching for the last 40 years, and at different levels, and then all of a sudden I had kids and I had my kids into it, and the emphasis about success at the levels and wins and losses and how you're doing within your league has seemed to become more and more important along the way. And I don't know why that is, and I don't know why that happens, because like I've noticed all along, and I'm sure that most coaches notice all along, it's the coaches who seem to take the wins and losses very hard. And if you see a kid after a gut-wrenching loss, 5 minutes later, he's at the hot dog stand, he's playing ball with his friends, and he's done. He's
Right.
finished, he's cool, it's all good. And the coaches and the parents are still going over, well, how do we let that one get away?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how that transition happened or why it happened. It just seems like everything's become much more competitive as time goes by.
It's a good point. My time with Coach Wooden, he really, even though again he was, got after it, right, and wanted to win, obviously, but he talked about effort rather than the result. And he always said that, the peace of mind is knowing that you've done your very best, right? And I think as kids, that's what it really was. I remember Boyle Park, right? We went out, we played the game, and win, lose, whatever. We go grab the hot dog, we watch the next game, and the next thing you know, we're playing pickle on the side or tag or something else, and we've moved on. You're exactly right. And now, but part of it is maybe a fear of missing out, like the parents are feel like my kid's missing out or afraid to let them fail. What do you think about that? You think that might play into it?
I think so. You see that a lot of times where and we've all run through it in the coaching aspect that we've been in, where the parents are kind of vicariously living through the kids a little bit, and my kid's success has become my success. And if I want to be able to look at myself as successful, I need my child to be successful, or I need my team to be successful. And I've also seen that within the concept of the leagues themselves, there is that little kind of territorial mentality is I want to be viewed as successful within my organization. And always kind of cracked me up, because when we're talking to coaches about that, we're saying, y'all realize that outside of this organization, nobody could care less about whether you won, lost, what you did, or how you did it. So, and one of the things we've always preached to the kids, as we've gone through this process is winning is one thing. At this level, it's better than losing.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's not in the top 10 objectives of what you're trying to accomplish. And if you ever get a scenario when you realize that if it's more important to you than it is to the kids that you're playing with, then that's an issue you got to address.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is as they pivoted to those, you know, what 72% of kids between 4 and 13 that are trying a team sport, it's become big business, right? So now all of a sudden money gets involved, right? And you know, we talked a little bit about it. So, you know, I guess as you're thinking, and again, I'm trying to stay on the ground level of this thing, but I know that everybody's thinking, I want my kid to get a college scholarship. I want them to play high school varsity. I want them, and the only way to do it is that. So I guess the question I would ask you is as someone who's seen a lot of athletes come through, your own kids and ones you've coached, and of course those that are in your program with Next Level, is how important it is, do you think, that kids play on a travel team in order to be able to have a chance of playing, let's say, high school ball? I mean, how important do you think it is, and what talk to me about that?
You know, travel teams they got their place. When you're talking about recreation, you're talking about if you sign up and you pay your money, you're going to play, you're going to get on a team, period. And so you're looking at a high disparity between the top level players and the lowest level players. Now, once you get to some travel situations, that disparity closes and that gap closes. And so you're playing with, you know, a little bit more competition, a little bit more skill level as you're going, and that's fine as you go through. But is it absolutely necessary to be able to achieve at the highest level? No, because, and I think B and you are both late bloomers as
Yep.
we came. And so you never know how a kid's going to develop, how they're going to grow, what they're going to do, and how they're going to do it. So having these kids play it at a high level at a really young age, it does not guarantee a scenario of the higher they go, the faster they develop, the better they're going to get. Because you also risk that burnout factor at the same time if you do this. And with the travel team scenario, my daughter played on a travel team for a long time, and it's a huge commitment. It's a huge time management situation, and it's a lot for young kids. So is it overly important to play there? It helps the skill development. It definitely does help the skill development because you're playing with and against better competition. But is it necessary to be able to go on and play at that high school varsity level, or is that the track that you have to take to be able to achieve those goals? I don't think so, and I've seen plenty of cases where it hasn't been that way.
You know what? I was talking to Rick Barry on one of the other shows I did recently, and he was talking about, I mean, again, he's got 5 sons that have got Division I college scholarships. And I asked him about kind of the similar thing, and he really thinks the same way you do, that there is travel teams that have a place, but it doesn't take place for being in love with the game and learning the fundamentals, right? I mean, you have to have those basic skill sets and fundamentals to be able to get that information. So, you know, and again, it's interesting because I think in this day and age, there's lots of different types of travel organizations as well, you know, that are saying you got to play year round and this and that. And there's others that really do a nice job. You know what I mean? They say, hey, we're going to travel we're going to go over this 6-week, we're going to play this many games, and this is the purpose and what's going on. So I think as a parent, we got to help the parents understand, if you're going to play travel, and again, there's nothing wrong with playing travel, right? That's not what you're saying. I'm not saying that. But if you're going to play, I guess you really got to understand kind of where is your child, what level they're really at, and what is your mission from getting that, right? If I was going to coach your daughter in travel soccer, what would you want to know before you let your daughter play for me? You got some questions maybe that you would ask?
All I want to know is it going to be fair? Is everybody going to get their just due? Because when you're playing in that type of scenario and you're playing on a team with that type of commitment, what you want to know is, and you're spending that much time and that much effort, that much energy, that much money for it, is everybody going to get treated the same? Is it going to be fair throughout to make sure that everybody gets their opportunity to shine? Now, one of the problems is when you get into these travel situations, the level of competitiveness goes up and the need to win goes up. And when that goes up, then the level of fairness goes down. That just comes with the territory. So I'm fine with travel teams as long as they keep their perspective along the way and understand, especially at the lower levels, when you're talking, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, they're all there to play. Right. They want to play. They want to shine. They want to do their thing. They want to develop. As long as I'm just looking for 3 things. When I was coaching or for my kids, I'm just looking for 3 things. Have them improve.
Yeah.
Have them understand the concept of sportsmanship and team play, and make sure they're having a good time. If you do those three things, then you have accomplished your goal. I don't care if you win a game. I don't care what you do or how you do it. If you're accomplishing those three things, then you're accomplishing your goal as a coach, whether that goes rec, travel, or anything else. But with the level of competition that goes with the travel league team, sometimes those things get pushed to the wayside in the effort to win because of the competitiveness that goes with it and the expectations that go with playing on a travel team.
Yeah. If you're coaching on one of those squads, it's funny you mentioned the word fair, because I think about this often. And we've all been in that scenario situation coaching where, hey, everybody's going to get equal play time, or these are the rules. And then it comes down to it and you're like, well, we're down by one. We got a chance to win. So do we put, Sarah in, who's really good, or do we put Jessica in, who it's her turn to play? You know what I mean? And that's
Right.
that you're talking about, that fairness there. So if you're listening to this as a parent, you really got to check and make sure. And there's not that everybody needs to get equal play time, et cetera. But my recommendation or thought process is that up until before high school, you got to get as many touches as you can, right? Get your hands on the ball, whatever your skill or sport is, because that's what it takes. It takes fundamentals. It takes having fun with it, like you said, and then as many as possible as well, touches on the ball. I also think what's interesting to me, which I'm going to ask you about, is about the sports IQ. You know what I mean? I get it that if I'm an athletic kid and you want me to play against higher competition, but let's kind of be real about this too, because if I'm not developing the sports IQ, right, understanding when to make the pass, when to make the play, et cetera, that can be a challenge. And I hear this all the time, well, they got to play against better competition to get better. So what's your mindset on that as your kids are coming up? What are you thinking about that? How do you develop that sports IQ, specifically the sports specific IQ, but also just in general?
I do agree with that it's always better to play against better competition. But I think the number one way you develop sports IQ and a feel for the game is you got to play. You just got to throw them out there and you got to play. They have to see it firsthand. They have to be able to understand game situations while they're in the middle of game situations. And that's how you develop that IQ. And it's always kind of been a little thing of mine where there has to be minimum playing time. Like we have to institute minimum playing time in these different leagues to make sure that everybody gets their opportunity. You also get your opportunity no matter what. So the only way to develop yourself as an athlete, you can do everything you can in practice and working it by yourself at home and doing all the things that you need to do to work to get better. But to develop yourself in a game situation and to get that basketball, baseball, football IQ, you've got to play in game situations to be able to do it. The only way to play in game situations is to throw them out there and see what they can do. And that's what the real good coaches do. They put them out there and they say, this is what, and they instruct in the game situations and they let them succeed or fail. And that's the only way to accomplish that, I think.
At the National Academy of Athletics and some of our coaching clinics, we teach a very similar philosophy. And one thing I think is really important is making sure that you make your praise public and your changes or coaching more private. So you're not just screaming at a kid, you got to this and got to that, because then it really breaks them down. Because confidence is one of the things I think, I think back when we were kids and I can remember just playing, you throw the ball, wiffle ball, or whatever it is. We played hours and hours and hours. And it wasn't, did I want to beat you? Absolutely. But if you lost one game, go to the next one going forward. But we didn't have someone in our head just constantly telling us, do this, do this, do this. We just kind of figured it out mostly by failure, right? I mean, if you think about it,
yeah.
The ones that failed, right? And they got out and
right.
not go through it, right?
And everything is an instruction. Everything is a teaching opportunity, a teaching moment. And sometimes we put a lot on coaches and parents, because a lot of these youth leagues and rec leagues and everything don't. For the most part, it is the parents of kids that are playing. And I know that my wife's a teacher, and when I was in high school, they used to say, like, you have to treat these high school kids, and you have to come in and you have to treat them as if you're a teacher. And when I was the athletic director, I was saying, my wife went to school for 9 months and got a credential and was in classroom for 6 months, whatever, to become a teacher. You can't take a guy from nowhere that's not a teacher and say, become a teacher. and just all of a sudden have all of those teaching methods that go along with it. So the best thing you could do as a coach is to make sure that everything is a teachable moment. And you're going to have those frustration situations that come on where you've taught the kids exactly what to do, how to do it. They go out, they don't execute, they forget. That happens all the time. That happens in the NFL, what I was watching yesterday. The same thing goes on to multi-million-dollar NFL players. But if you can just keep everything as a teachable moment and make everything a teachable moment, then that's where the kids will have a better understanding of what they're supposed to do. And that's where they get the in-game experience as well. It's just being able to have everything be a teachable moment for them.
So when we're talking about the leagues themselves, because to me, I feel like I would rather have my kids play tons of sports as many times as possible. I really would say less organized, structured games in front of a crowd with referees, and more, small-sided games, whatever it is, to get lots of touches and lots of experience. But I'm seeing the way it looks like youth sports is going. A lot of it is that, we need to be playing, 60 basketball games a year, in the off season. And remember, it used to be Bernie Snyder, our basketball coach, right? During
Yep.
the season, the team was built. During the off season, you built the individual player. That's when you learn to play, right? We used to go down the street and play with the fellas, and that's when we learned really how to get after it. And then we learned a system and a team work within that. It seems like that's breaking down. Do you think that's because the adults are concerned with the end result and the winning and losing more than, because let's be honest, we had more fun playing in the off season than we did during the season at the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, the organization and the structure is good. You got to have that as it goes on. But I always found it interesting when I was athletic director as well, that everyone's running off-season programs. They're all running them at the same time, and they all want everyone to participate. But we had kids that are playing 3 different sports, and you can't play all 3 at the same time. And even coming from the college recruitment level, where a lot of people think you need to just dedicate yourself to this sport year round and don't worry about anything else and how it goes. Even a lot of college recruiters say they like multi-sport athletes. They like multi-dimensional athletes because you can learn different things from different sports as in high school. Because once you get to college, those days are over. You're going to be focused on that 24 hours a day on your sport, but play as much as you can. So when you're doing the off-season work, it should be more laid back, more enjoyable, because once you get into that structured scenario, you're going 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, you're traveling, you're doing this, and everything it's very refined. And at that point, and we both know as coaches for a long time, there's not enough hours in the day to implement everything you need to know. You can't teach these guys from scratch on the first day of practice and have a game 2.5 weeks later. They need to learn some of this stuff in the off season on their own or with you as guidance, but to develop those individual skills to get to that next level. So when you can hit the ground running once your season starts and be able to kind of pick it up in the middle instead of starting from the absolute bottom.
I remember you were at a camp 20-something years ago, and you said to these kids, you said, you have to develop on your own certain fundamentals so that when you get to the high school level, you have a basic understanding of how to play the game, the rules, and I think it was even basketball. You need to know how to make a right and a left-hand layup, dribble with your right hand, left hand. I mean, they're just real simple concepts. And to me, I feel like, again, Coach Wooden said, if you spend too much time learning the tricks of the trade, you never learn the trade, right? Well, this is a sad part to me. I see kids that potentially could be pretty good, but they get on a team that's really good. And now they're playing travel ball and they're caught up and they're not getting a lot of play time. They play a little bit when they're up by a little this and that, or a lot of where the case is. And now the team's success and they're going, man, I'm great. This is wonderful, right? But then they get to high school, whatever, and they've never developed. They've never, right? Granted, they play with higher competition, but they didn't develop the individual skills that are needed and they fall behind. I mean, think about this. 71% of kids will quit playing team sports at age 15, right?
Yeah, and there's an absolute reason for that. You're going to get that level of attrition as you go up, depending on how committed you are and how much you want to go with it. But a lot of that is when we were playing back in days when we were kids and coming through, high school was the ultimate. That's what we were looking for. That's kind of what we were building up to now. Well, if you're playing 75 games a year as a 12-year-old, by the time you get to high school, it's almost a relief because you're not playing as much now at that point. So I'm always interested in like low level or early recreation teams. And I'll look and they'll be practicing 7 out of bounds plays. If you're talking basketball, I say, well, that looks great, but can the kid make a layup? Can he get the right footwork to make the layup? Can he dribble with his left hand? You can execute this play, that's fine, but we call them the moment of truth. When the moment of truth comes and you haven't taught him how to shoot the ball correctly, then what's the point at that point? So, the fundamental aspects of things, that's what you should be teaching these kids, I think, all the way up until they get to about middle school, just straight fundamentals so that they can start to figure out the advanced concepts, but you can't start teaching them advanced concepts before you can do the basic concepts.
I tell everybody, I remember down at Tam Valley School, when I was in practice with whatever school, I did exactly what they said and went down there and I was trying all the fancy stuff and watching Rick Barry do it and all that stuff. That's when we learned to jump hook and do our own things to create, you know what I mean? We used to get yelled at during the games if we tried it, but we had fun.
That's true.
Coach Max saying, no, hit your cutoff and I can throw it that far. No,
yeah.
Fundamentals, baby, fundamentals.
Yep.
So top down. And by the way, I want to remind you, if you are enjoying this and you want to find other stuff, just click subscribe to the channel. We'd love to go forward for that. By the way, if you have any other questions or topics that you want to add to this, you know what, throw it in there. Myself or one of the staff will get back to you because we can build on that as well. But all right, Scott. So thinking top down, you're helping kids through the next level get a chance to. I got a kid who I want to play college. So I'm a sophomore and I want to play college. So sticking with the travel for a second, how important is it that do they look at if you played travel ball or not? I mean, how important does that on your resume? Is that really important? And how many games did you win during the travel ball and how many trophies and all? Did you play in Ohio and California and New Mexico? Does any of that really matter, or where does that fit in?
Yeah, travel is a big deal. When you start getting to the college recruitment level, travel is a big deal. And the simple reason is it a simple math, because recruiting is basically fundamentally broken down to 2 things. It's time and money. And the people that have more time and more money, if you're talking Duke basketball and they're sending a dozen coaches out across the country to look at kids, well, Chico State basketball is not doing that. Chico State basketball doesn't have as much staff and doesn't have as much money. So they need to concentrate their efforts. They want to concentrate their efforts on travel type AAU travel, any kind of situation like that, where basically they feel like they're looking at a team of all-stars instead of just one individual player. So they want to be able to go and recruit multiple people at tournaments they go to, because they just don't have as much opportunity to be able to do that based on their situation, where they're coming from. So it does become a big deal. Resume wise, it just lets coaches know I've played against higher level competition. And that's what they're looking for coming in, because college coaches aren't really looking at you and saying, can you play well in high school? They're evaluating you like, how are you going to do against college level competition? And maybe not even as an incoming freshman, how are you going to do against college level competition a year or 2 from now? So if you're dominating a high school situation that is not up to college standards, I cannot get a read on you of how you're going to do at the next level. So I need to see you play against top level competition. So in that scenario, playing for travel teams does have a bigger impact than playing on your high school team, just as far as resume goes for recruiting.
Okay, so that's great. That's great information. Parents, I would definitely tune in on that. That's good information. So the question then is, at what age? And again, there's probably differences based on the kid, but again, I'm seeing Rick Barry the other day was making fun of it. We're talking about, he said, I got kids that are traveling 3rd grade, and it's like, okay, state to state. So at some point you mentioned burnout, which I want to kind of touch a little bit on, but at what age are you going to recommend and say, okay, look, if you're serious about playing college, not just high school, because I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think travel should really, other than teaching you, it's not about, you're not supposed to be recruiting, for high school, but so where does that fit in? And at what point do you start to go, okay, you're serious about this, and then how do you target that?
I think until you get to a high school level, because when you're playing right before high school, anything that you play before high school, basically it's almost recreation. Everything is recreation. And I constitute recreation is if you sign up, pay your money, you're going to play. Now, when you get to a high school level, you're talking the 3 levels of high school, you may need to try out. There may be 40 kids for 15 spots, and they're going to take those 15. So there's no guarantee that you're going to play at that level anymore. You have to earn your spot on that team. And so when that becomes a situation where now it becomes a little bit more competitive, winning takes a little bit higher priority, and success and individual development takes a little bit more higher priority, then that's when things start to begin. And so I think when you get into high school, you should start looking at travel opportunities there. Up until then, if you're doing travel team at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that's fine, because you want to play against higher level competition and you want to try to develop more skills and whatnot. But just make sure that the coaches have the kids' best interest in mind. Because still, when it's all said and done, you're not going to college based on what you did when you were 12. And your
body's going to change a lot, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes that are going to come. And frankly, when you get to high school, I've always thought that until what you do matters to people outside of the immediate organization if you're with, but you're talking freshman or junior varsity as well, no one within the community of your high school is going to be that interested in what you do as a freshman or JV. It's when you get to varsity when all of a sudden the community becomes involved a little bit, the entire school becomes involved a little bit, and things crank up a little bit higher at that point. So I even think that freshmen in the JV situation should be more developmental until you get to high school. And one of the things people always ask me is, when can I start the recruiting process? When should I get involved? You should get involved when you got something to tell somebody, when you got something to tell a college coach. And unless you are playing on a decent level travel team, or you are playing on a high school varsity team, they don't care. They're not interested yet because they don't know how you're going to develop into be able to play against college competition.
If you're 6, 7 as a freshman and you're something, you probably would be playing at least JV up to varsity anyway. So right. I remember so Alan Lunan, remember Coach Lunan?
I remember Al. Oh yeah.
Coach, boy. But I remember he said, look, Aaron, freshman is about having fun and learning how to not embarrass yourself on the basketball court, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
JV is about skill development and getting your mind right so you're ready to get out there. And varsity is about competing to win the game. And that same mindset, right? You got to have that development.
Right.
So it sounds like, as someone's been around doing this for a while, that really from the colleges, let's be honest, there are some kids that are looking at freshmen and 12, and I know they've signed, I don't know, whatever they're doing. But realistically, unless your child is really athletically gifted, and that includes physically gifted, I would imagine as well, right? Then realistically, trying to get in the funnel for somebody probably needs to wait till they're in high school. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I would recommend that because, back to the burnout situation, if you're playing 60, 70 games a year from the time you're 12 years old. And I've dealt with a lot of kids in my business situation with this. By the time you get to be a junior in high school, you're done. You have done this so much. It has taken over and been such a huge part of your life that at this point, you're like, I just really want to be a junior in high school. And I want to experience my last 2 years of high school. So I think there's a way to ease into this as well. But you're right. It just everything starts earlier and earlier and earlier. And it's kind of the shark frenzy feeding effect where if this guy is starting earlier, then I got to start earlier too. And if they're both starting earlier, then I got to start earlier too. And on it goes. And then all of a sudden, like you said, you got 9-year-old travel teams that are going all over the place and spending all of their weekends, playing competitive baseball. Well, when you ask the kid at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, if you asked them 3 days later, how'd you do in that tournament? I bet he couldn't tell you whether they won or lost.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's a team that I heard about, Andrew Ziemer, soccer, big soccer family was telling me about that. There was a team and they had done what you said, and 11 kids from the team had all gotten college scholarships from this one high school team. Really cool, right? A year later, only 2 were still playing. It's like, so you work for that, you work all this time to develop all this, and then you get there and then that's it. And it's like, okay, how does that happen? Well, it's like you said, I tell everybody, I love steak, but if you make me eat steak 365 days a year, I'm going to become a vegan. And I like my steak, man.
Right. And what's something they don't realize too is what you're doing in high school and what you're doing at the age, say 14 to 18, whether it's travel ball or through high school or doing both, playing both at the same time because you want to get as many reps as you can, you want to get as much action as you can, that is going to absolutely pale in comparison to what you do the minute you step on a college campus. Yeah. That becomes your main focus. So if you thought you were working hard as a 14 to 18-year-old, playing all of these games and all of the sacrifice and commitment, you're about to get educated when you step on a college campus. And so if you're starting to reach that situation, like this is becoming more of a job than it is becoming an enjoyable experience, it really becomes more of a job when you get to college. So you got to just know what you're getting into. That's the main thing that I think that you want to tell parents about, and you want parents to understand, is have an understanding of what you're getting into and what the progression should be leading up to it, because the higher you go, the more the expectations are.
So I know with my kids and with kids that I've coached, I've used the red light, green light, yellow light scenario. So if my kids are excited to go to practice, excited to go to the games, green light, let's roll. If the kids are kind of not liking going to practice but still want to play the game, that's a yellow light. And if they not really liking practice but don't really want to go to the games, that's a red light, right? And what you want to
Right.
do, I think, is we want to get to a point that we stop before it gets to red light, because once they don't like broccoli, they don't like broccoli. You know what I mean?
Right, right. It's a done deal. And I remember with my kids, and when they were wanting to play travel ball or whatever, and I said, that's fine. We'll support you in whatever you want to do and however you want to do it. But the minute you start hemming and hawing about going to practice or getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to drive 3 hours for this tournament, and you're going like, I don't know if I want to do this. Okay, then we've reached the point where you're not ready to make that sacrifice or that commitment. And that's totally understandable. And that's totally fine with me. Just know what you're getting into when you go into this, because once you start, we want you to finish. But you can kind of see that development coming, where all of a sudden, this isn't as fun as it used to be. This is more of a chore than it is a game. And until you start getting paid for it, or until you start getting an education for it, or your education paid for it, it's still a game. It's still a game, and it still should be enjoyable. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, don't do it.
Right. I love that. I love that. So where would you suggest for kids? I know you're a fundamental guy, right? It's kind of where where would you
Yep.
suggest kids, families are looking to get skill development and whatnot. Let's say they got a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, 8-year-old, even 11 or 12-year-old, and then maybe they're not quite at the travel ball yet, but they're still kind of trying to figure out between the difference between, well, should I play travel? Should I not? Where would you suggest they start out?
I love the camps and the clinics, and you used to run a ton of camps, and we used to work the camps together and do that. And one of the reasons I really like the aspect of the camps and the clinics is you get different points of view coaching. So I think it's good for coaches, for kids to have different coaches as they go up a level. Sometimes, coaches want to follow their kids all the way up through. I started with them at 3rd grade and I took them all the way through 8th grade or whatever. I like it when the coaches change a little bit, because you get a different point of view, a different aspect, a different way of teaching. Somebody may have a different way of instructing you, giving you development, giving you their ideas, and you get a more well-rounded scenario of how you're developing as a player. And I think when you go to different camps and different clinics and different opportunities like that, you're going to come across different people that are going to give you different ways. And one of the things we tell our kids and the kids that I've always worked with is take it all in. Take everything in and take the best parts of it, what everybody is giving you, for you to become the best player you can be. So I do like that avenue of being wide ranging in those scenarios as far as camps and clinics go.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good one. I also know that when you talk about them playing for the same coach, a lot of times maybe you're the tall kid. So, hey, all I know is let's just put you at the low block because you're the tall kid. Where if you were coaching that kid, you might say, hey, let you play some point guard and try different things, because you may not always be the tall kid or whatever the case may be. So I think I agree.
Right.
That's a big one. So I agree. We still run a ton of camps in 9 different sports at the National Academy of Athletics. We're all over the place running those, but it's funny because the primary focus that we have is what you said back at the very beginning, which is teach the fundamentals, helping them fall in love with the game, and then learn this part of it, so they understand not just the out of bounds, but the when to make the pass, when to throw the ball, all those other factors, because that's really what develops the confidence and makes it fun for them. So if you were helping a parent, so a parent comes to you and says, look, I played college baseball, and my son is 11, and he's actually pretty good. And he's a big kid. Everybody says he's pretty good. I want him to get a college scholarship. What would you give me some advice? How would you go? What's the path?
People ask me all the time with my business. They ask me all the time, how can I get a college scholarship, or how can I get a college scholarship for my kids? I'm all, well, there's one way to get a college scholarship, one way and one way only. Be really, really good at what you do. That's how you get a college scholarship. So if you're talking a young kid, if you're talking a middle school age kid, 11, 12, 13 years old, and say, how can I get a college scholarship? You can't. You're not going to get a college scholarship. You're not going to do this at this level. The best thing you can do is instill their love for the game, their willingness to work hard, to get better, to develop, to have fun, and continue to progress. And progress all the way up through high school, through their high school years, through their high school age groups, through travel teams if necessary. But the best thing that they can do is make sure that they continue to love the game and want to keep playing and want to keep working hard on it. Because it's a very difficult road, and it takes a lot of hard work to do it. And if it's going to be a lot of hard work and sacrifice, you really got to love what you're doing. That's the biggest thing you got to do. You have to love what you're doing. So as long as you can instill the love, and that may be different things for different kids and different people and how they do it. Sometimes it might be it's all I want to do. Sometimes it might be I just want to do this for this season, and then I want to go to this sport, and then I want to go to this sport and do that. And if that's what it takes for them to continue that love for it, then that's what they need to do. So it's always different for them, for each individual, but the love and the willingness to want to continue to do it is the main thing. And I always said, when we were coaching, our main goal of the whole thing, no matter what level we were playing at, until we got up to the higher levels at high school varsity and whatnot, was if you have created such a positive atmosphere and such a great experience that every one of your kids that you coach wants to come back the next year and do it again. If you've done that, then you've succeeded in every aspect of what you're trying to do. Because the more they come, the more they play, the better they're going to get just by osmosis.
Yeah. Wow. It seems to me that I think about the leagues that I'm involved with, and I help. We do a lot of training for youth league boards and little league boards and CYOs and organizations, and we're constantly telling what you just said, which is obviously one, if every kid wants to come back and play next season, you've done a good job, right?
Yep. That's the measuring stick.
That's it, right? That's it right there. If your league's growing, I think as a little league guy, so you've been involved with little league, you've been involved with lots of leagues. So what would we say to someone who's a little league manager for like running a league, let's say on the board? What would you say to them so we don't get to this point where, again, back to the original premise, I feel like at times we're so focused on the winning and losing and towards keeping the parents happy that we forget really it's supposed to be all about the kids. So what would you give, kind of last question for you, what would you give to these boards to help them to understand really it's about the kids and maybe how they can stay in that lane a little bit? What would you give them some suggestions around that?
Always remember that in telling the coaches and the board and everybody involved, if you're not there, they'll find somebody else to fill that role. If the kids aren't there, you got no role to fill. You have nothing to do. You have no league. So this is all about the kids. What can we do to make sure that everything is positive for the kids and that the kids all want to come back? Because I can always find board members. I can find coaches. I can do this. I can do that. I can't find kids. If we don't have kids, then none of us are here doing this job. So the main goal of this whole zoo is to make sure that the kids are having such a positive experience and such a good time that they want to come back and play the next year. That gives us an opportunity to keep coaching. Without that, then we're not going to coach because there's nobody left to coach. That's number one. Number two, can we develop them and just help them improve so they feel good about themselves? Because the kids, honestly, the winning and losing part is a small fraction of what they're interested in. They're more interested in, they want to get better. They want to see themselves improve. They want to see themselves step up to the next level and do things at the end of the year that they couldn't do at the beginning of the year. Right. And that's where they take, you could go 0-15, but if all of a sudden this one kid that couldn't swing a bat at the beginning of the year is now getting hits at the end of the year, he could care less that you're 0-15. He feels great about what he did and what you accomplished. And you should feel great about what you've accomplished to get him to that level. So those are the measuring sticks that you should have and have less to do with playoffs and championships and districts and everything else that goes along with it. Narrow your goals down to, can I get all the kids, can I get them to come back? Can I get them to show marked improvement throughout the year? And can we do it on a scenario where everybody is enjoying themselves, having a great experience, that when the game is over, everybody just goes out and grabs a hot dog and a Coke together and goes off and plays their thing as much as they want to do somewhere else, doing it the way that they want to do it, then you know that you've accomplished what you want to accomplish. And when it's all said and done, you look up at the scoreboard when it's in. If we won, cool. And if we didn't, oh well.
Right. What do we learn from as we go? I just know that when I look back at my youth sports experience, right, I think of all the coaches that have helped me, and I still love to go shoot hoops. And I know for a fact that if someone would have sucked the life out of the game for me there, I wouldn't want to do that. So to me,
True.
it's a lifetime adventure that you've got. I would say, that if you're in charge of a league, just remember you're holding a lot in your hands. You know what I mean? And be really careful about how you approach it. And we've got to keep things in perspective as we go forward for sure with that. So Scott, man, you've got so much experience. I'm going to get you back on. I was just thinking of a topic which I don't want to tease right now, but these cats, people who listen will jump involved. But if someone wants information about your service, what's the best way for them to either follow you or to get in touch or to find out more about you through the Next Level College Athletics and Admissions Counseling?
They could go on our website at Next Level CAAC, which stands for College Athletics and Admissions Counseling.com, and there's all the information there about what we do, what we offer, the things that we can do to maybe help your cause. And basically, we're in the information business. So if there's any information that you may need, you could also, there's a phone number and an email on our website. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. We're happy to deliver information. Our main goal in this whole thing is to deliver as much information as we can to help create as many opportunities for kids as we can if they want to continue to pursue their athletic career past the high school level. That's our goal. But it's all about information, because information is everything. Information is king.
Right. And it's not just the elite athlete, right? It's everywhere in between, because there's opportunities out there, right?
Absolutely not. All people really know, because this is all they see on ESPN, is the top 300 football players and the McDonald's All-Americans and everything. That is the smallest of minorities of players that play college sports. The vast majority of kids that play college sports are good, solid, good academically, good athletically, and get the opportunity to go play at the next level. And that comes at all different levels. And so you don't have to be the MVP of your league. You don't have to be 6'8" and 300 pounds to be able to do this. There's opportunities to play at the next level to continue your career on a wide range of colleges to do it. So, if you're willing to put in the time, the sacrifice and the work to get this done, there's going to be opportunities for you out there. It's just a matter of how hard you want to work to get there.
Right. There you go. I love it. Absolutely. Well, this has been cool. I don't know about you, but I'm digging it. I'm sure everybody here is listening. I appreciate all the support and the questions and information that's coming in, because it does stir on the questions going forward. Again, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all the support. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Most people actually find it easy to go to nationalacademyofathletics.com, and that's where they're getting their direct information. You can find out about all our different programs. If you get stuck and they're looking for information on Scott, again, message us. And if you can't find him through his program, we'll make sure we get the information out there. We appreciate it. And I guess just a kind of reminder to everybody, this is all about Talk, Teach, Play is all about youth sports. And our conversation is really about making the experience better for the kids. We know, based on our journey, Scott and I know each other 45 years, our journey through youth sports, and here we are getting a chance to share this. Everybody appreciate it. I remind everybody both to make and do everything you can, both on and off the field of competition, to always in life remember to play hard and have fun. So thanks everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Great, thanks, Aaron.